Hello and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires we call the internets is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
I am ready for Fall Comic-Con, the comic book party.
Already?
Oh, yeah, October 10th, 2015, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Minnesota State Fairgrounds Education Building. The one-day
About
wonder.
time. I need me some education.
Oh, yeah, 420 minutes of extreme comic book action. And, of course, you'll find out more about it by going to www.mcbacomiccons.com.
Comic Cons?
I don't know. Google it.
I don't
Google it. It's all good.
No one tells me anything.
Nobody tells Cory nothing.
I'm used to that.
You should be used to that. But we got a lot to cover here in this here podcast because with the
I know we've been without one for 2 weeks.
One drunken orgy, which was extremely fun. Yeah, no podcast. At least not us. I mean, I know you've been a busy little beaver throwing up little solo stuff.
2 of them last week.
Impressive. Most impressive.
But I'm not a Jedi yet.
Or a journalist. Or a pie eater.
You see, I am a national treasure. And that's what's important.
I thought you were National Velvet.
No.
Oh, Blue Velvet. That's what you were.
You know, that would be interesting.
Blue Velvet.
You're jumping into my geekins already. Stop it!
The best part about that movie, we had a friend who rented it, and she was fairly conservative, didn't really... It wasn't a movie we would expect it out of her, but we sat down to watch it. My guess is she probably thought it was a sequel to, like, International Velvet or something.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Because we watched it, and, I mean, it was pretty funked up.
And she kept waiting for the horses.
And at the end of it, I was like, yeah, that was a real interesting choice. I didn't think that wasn't what I thought it would be. I'm like, obviously you never heard of David Lynch, but that's okay. Sure, some people don't. They don't go in that circle of stuff.
I suppose. Now, I saw that movie in college.
I think I was in college, too.
I went with friends. I went to college in a small college town.
Small. SMall.
When the college was in, it had 20,000 people. During the summer, when college was out of session, there were 10,000 people who lived there. So we went, and they only showed it one night for the art. I think it was like the first Wednesday of every month, they would show an art film, which, oh, look, it's a Japanese movie. Oh, look, it's a movie without car chases. So they showed Blue Velvet. Myself and my college roommate loved it. We loved it. We were so in love. We thought the movie was amazing. One of my other friends thought it was the worst, most offensive thing he had ever seen in his life. We had 2 female friends. One agreed with me, and one agreed with him. And our third friend, Jimmy, fell asleep.
Jimmy!
To this day, there are times when I will say that Blue Velvet is my favorite movie. It depends on my mood and stuff, but still, every time I revisit Blue Velvet, it gives me such wonderful memories. My favorite showing of Blue Velvet ever, though. Joe, did you ever go to the Oak Street Cinema when it was a retro cinema from like 95, 96 till, 2004, 2005?
I might have gone a couple times. I tended to head to the Uptown Theater for my retro fix.
They showed it there, and the theater was packed. It was absolutely full. And this was not during the Twin Peaks phenomenon. Nope, this was just, they're showing Blue Velvet, then they showed Wild at Heart. And during Blue Velvet, that crowd was in love. They laughed at every one of Frank's lines. They knew his lines. They shouted along. We're not going to use any of his great lines because we had the explicit tag last time. We don't want to go 2 in a row. But yep. Blue Velvet. And then Twin Peaks. Right after. A few years after, there's a TV show. And I remember watching that pilot episode going, this is the Blue Velvet TV show. This could be the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, and that was before, cable really took off. Cable was like
some
weird exotic thing that only your rich neighbors had, that you could watch Star Trek 24/7. Comedians on demand.
See, when I first got cable, you know what show I fell in love with? I don't know if anybody even remembers the show. USA Network on Friday and Saturday nights would show Night Flight. And Night Flight was a weird collection of odd things. It would be like, they didn't do music videos in the 60s, but they would do like promotional films for songs where it would be like a music video, except it was on film and all this. They would show those. They would show concerts of new wave bands. They would show really sort of strange movies. They would show old movies that no one else would show, like Terror of Tiny Town. You know, Joe, the all-midget singing musical made in 1937.
Oh, yeah. Why isn't that out on DVD?
Oh, it is. Now, I don't have a copy because I've seen it already, but it's out on DVD. They would show stuff like that, and you would tune in just to see what the hell they would show next. Now, cable seems very bland compared to that. That's why we have the internets.
Yes. If it's not it's not worth having.
You know who else is missing the days of weird cable and enjoys good, entertaining movies about singing midget cowboys?
I don't, but I have a feeling you're going to tell us.
These guys, our sponsors. This show has sponsors, and those sponsors are our best friends. They can be your best friends, too. Our first sponsor is DreamHost.com. DreamHost.com is the best bar-none web host in the whole known universe. If you need a website, DreamHost.com is the host you need to go to. And if you use the code KRAYZ, K-R-A-Y-Z, you get $20 off your first year. Just go to DreamHost.com. Do you need healthy snacks? You probably do. We all do. How would you like them where they show up without you even having to order them, where you just get a subscription, they show up, so that when you've run out, they show up again? Graze.com has great healthy snacks, and you get a free box if you use the code CORYS3R5P. That's Cory S 3R5P. Your first box and your fifth box are free. If you're listening to this show, you're one of the smartest people in the whole known universe, and you're probably fed up with paying too much for razors. So join Dollar Shave Club. They deliver great blades every month for just a few bucks. No more schlepping to the drugstore, no more overpriced, ridiculous shave tech that you don't need. Razor plans start at just $3 a month. Check it out and let us know what you think. Just go to dollarshaveclub.com/crazy, Krayz. If you'd like to advertise on Crazy Comics and Stories or the Solitaire Rose podcast, we'd love it. Just go ahead and email me at cory.strode@gmail.com, subject advertising. You can also send us emails there. We love to get them. We love to read them. And most of the time, we can build a whole show around a 3-line email. So go ahead and email us at cory.strode@gmail.com, or you can call or leave a message that we will play on the air at 952-856-0519. Thanks.
Neat.
I don't know if they like that stuff or not,
Well,
but I
yeah.
needed a segue,
Well,
and it was sitting right
good
there.
one. You know, you gotta
Sitting right
pick it up.
there.
I mean, it's all cool.
So, we got a lot to cover.
We does.
It's going to be 2 episodes, kids.
Yep. So get 2 buckets of popcorn, one for today, one for next week, or whenever Cory posts it again.
We will probably do 2 this week. This one will be Monday, and then the next one will be either Wednesday or Thursday, depending on how my sanity holds up.
So let us go back to the very, very far past. We're talking May 2nd, 2015. That was called...
Oh, wait, no, we have official music for when we do flashbacks.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It was the early days of May. We were still under the spell of what was a popular band back then, Joe?
I don't know. It's May. I don't listen to radio. I listen to everything on iTunes now.
David Letterman was
still on the air
at the Ed Sullivan Theater. Mad Men was on AMC Sunday nights. CSI hadn't been officially canceled.
President Bernie Sanders just started his bold grassroots run for president.
And convicted felon Mike Huckabee had not been arrested yet.
This was before I slept for 6 hours straight, then 2 hours gay.
Free Comic Book Day!
Woohoo! But before Free Comic Book Day.
We did something before that?
Well, you didn't, but I did.
Oh, okay.
See, what I done did is...
What you done did do?
I think... Let's see, way back when, we ended up... Well, I got up early because one of the guys that I pal with online, he does a twice-a-year garage sale type thing where he kind of blows out Hot Wheel cars and things like that. And I always go to it because I usually find something. I'm not looking for the expensive stuff, but I'm looking for like the 1971 Plymouth Satellite, the Brady Bunch car as envisioned by the Hot Wheels gang, which was a little different because it didn't have the wood paneling on it, but it's the same car. Whereas the Matchbox version had the wood paneling but wasn't the 71 Plymouth Satellite. I picked up an Ecto 1A from Ghostbusters 2. I picked up the Rolling Thunder version of BJ and the Bear, if you remember that one. If not, Google it, kids. I picked up the Ford Super Deluxe from Back to the Future, the one that Biff drove and smashed into a manure truck. And this particular one comes covered with manure. I'm not sure if it's real manure. I'm not going to open it. And I picked up another copy of course, the greatest car ever made. I'm talking, of course, of the Homer.
The Homermobile.
But as a, how would you say, kind of a omen to today's festivities way back then on the 2nd, I also picked up the very rare and hard to assemble Avengers Assemble Hot Wheels set. Actually, it was Age of Ultron. It was 8 different cars.
How ironic that it's the Avengers Assemble, and yet it's hard to assemble.
It was. And it
Alanis Morissette would be very proud.
Comes with 8 different cars, and it has one of every character from the Avengers, except... Guess who?
Nick Fury.
No, he's there.
Colby Smulders.
Nope. Actually, everybody's there. I was just fooling you. Even Black Widow, one of the few Black Widow pieces to emerge.
Agent Coulson.
I also picked up, he's dead, you know. I also picked up
Hawkeye's wife.
The Amazing Spider-Man set from the previous year, of which I had the chase car, and he happened
Incredible
to
Hulk's pants.
No, those were there.
Oh.
So I already started out the day good. I picked up a bunch of stuff, and I was ready to rock. And as I knew, the day would only get even better. Because then I joined up with Cory and the indomitable Butch. As we all piled into Cory's little car for our free comic book day trip to...
Little? It's a sedan.
It was little. To...
It's a 4-door.
Granite City in St. Cloud, Minnesota, where the owner, Tim, was kind enough to put aside 2 sets, count them 2 sets, of the complete free comic book day stuff for us to buy. And since we were picking it all up and he was going to assemble it, we offered to just buy it at wholesale, which still ended up being about, $16? $18? I forget.
Yeah.
It was quite a lot of comics. So we got there, but on the way up, if we could have set up a microphone, we would have had about 4 podcasts all ready to go. Because when you get the 3 of us together, me, Cory, and Butch, it's just nonstop reminiscing, talking. We would freebase from comic books.
No, we were not
wrestling
freebasing. That's what killed John
Butch on
Belushi.
the Highway to, just how many pieces of pie Cory had the previous day. It was just a nonstop.
7. The answer is 7.
Well, that day, but the previous day.
No, the previous day was 7.
It's always 7?
No, it was 7 that
You
day.
have OCD, my friend.
No, we didn't have enough time for me to get 7 pieces of pie on Free Comic Book
Is
Day.
there anything you remember most about the conversation on the way up?
There are 2 things, one funny and one serious.
Ooh. Well, serious first, because we want to end it with fun.
Okay, the serious one was when you reconnect with old friends, and that's been happening with me a lot this year, and it's been very touching, and it means a lot. But you know how you go to a high school reunion and you talk to people and you reminisce about old times, and you just kind of breeze over what you're doing now, and you always say you're going to, you'll stay in touch, and you really never do because all you really have are the old times.
Yeah.
People I've been reconnecting with, Butch, Christy, and most especially Jen, we're not just talking about old times. We're talking about it once in a while. But we're also talking about what's going on now. We're connecting about our lives now. There are times we're catching each other up, but there are also times when it's just we're picking up and moving forward. Because one of the things I say on the podcast a lot is when all you have is nostalgia, it's limited. And with all 3 of those folks, they've come back, and it's not just nostalgia. And yet, at times, it's a little overwhelming that we've missed out on so many years. Now, in some cases, they needed time to get their shit together. In my case, I always need time to get my shit together because my shit's always a mess. But it's been very touching to me that these people have come back, and it really, you over years you miss them, but you forget how much they meant to you. But then seeing them and being around them again, it really kind of overwhelms me because, I'm an emotional wreck. Joe even saw me cry during the Avengers movie, for Christ's sake.
No, I didn't. I wasn't paying attention to you.
And why did you elbow me and say, quit it?
It's because you were, trying to grab some of my popcorn.
You didn't have any popcorn.
That's what I was trying to tell you.
Counting the popcorn I spilled on the floor. The funny thing was, we're driving along, and all of a sudden Butch goes, you know what? It's just like listening to the podcast, except when I'm yelling at the speakers, you guys can hear me.
That was a fast drive up too. I mean, when you got some good friends going and you got decent conversation, it goes quick.
Yeah, it does. So those were my observations. Joe, what were your observations?
I didn't really, I wish I could remember. I just remember going from comics to wrestling to old times to food to wrestling again. And your brain's going 100 miles an hour because whatever is said, you got 20 things to share, and you're lucky if you only have one by the time you get a chance to say something again. And I think I only passed gas twice. I might have been on the way home. I don't remember. Yep.
Anyway.
Now, have you been to Granite City, their new store?
I have never been to St. Cloud. I've stunned him into silence,
I'm just thinking that it had a benefit to you or St. Cloud, but I'm not sure which. So give us,
St. Cloud was probably very happy I'd never been there before.
Give us your impression of Granite City.
Granite City is very much an old school comic shop. You walk in, it's well lit, I'll give it that, so it's not an 80s comic shop. But when you look at it, it's very much like an old school comic shop. Along one wall are all the new books. On the wall are the high-priced books. Then there are comic boxes full of back issues. And boy, did they have back issues that I would have gotten rid of years ago. Because they sure wouldn't sell at cover price. The only real suggestion I have for them is the way they display their graphic novels just doesn't work, and their selection was kind of limited. And I know that it takes a lot of work to build up a graphic novel selection. But the graphic novels were all in comic bags, so you had to open them up in order to flip through. And the way they were displayed, if one book was in front, there was another one behind, and you couldn't really tell if they were the same book or not without taking them out and looking. And eventually I just kind of, it's not worth the time to dig through. So they may have had a couple graphic novels I wanted, but it wasn't worth. I got very tired of, okay, what's behind this? What's behind this? What's behind this? It's why I like stores that have them spine out so you can see what they got.
I pretty much went through a lot of their gold and silver age stuff because that's one thing they have. The unique thing about Granite City is that they've survived. And everybody else who has showed up in that town and figured, well, we're going to run Granite City out of business because we do magic better, or we have a deeper discount on comics, or we do this, that, or the other thing. They're gone. Granite City's remain. And I don't know how long Tim says he's been there. They bought the store from the previous owner, a guy named John. And I remember Gruber and I used to go up to St. Cloud because John would put on comic shows back when you could actually make money doing these semi-annual or bi-monthly comic shows. And then John sold the shop to Tim and Dave. Dave, I don't see much anymore. He's kind of the numbers guy behind the scene. Although he was a bit disappointed to find out that we had made the trip to Granite City and nobody bothered to call him because he would have come down and geeked with us as well.
Especially since we were there for 9 hours?
We were there quite a while. I mean, and of course, what's the first thing that happens? The one comic artist out there recognizes Cory instantly. And I'm talking about, and correct me if I said her name wrong, Vas Littlecrow Wojtanowicz? Wojtanowicz, thank you.
I believe that's how it's pronounced.
And if she's listening, hopefully she'll tell us how it is pronounced. But it was so cool. I mean, to see her. Cory and you and her talked for a while. What I thought was really cool is she was there promoting her book, which I got a copy of, The Collected Rasputin Catamite, which I have yet to read, and I told her I would and pass on to you so we could read it and give it a review. I think her husband did a mini comic, because I did pick up a mini comic called Poe Takes a Trip, which is kind of interesting because as I was looking at it, it looks like they glued the cover onto the last page, because if you hold it up, you can see for more information and fun-filled and then it's blotted out. So that must be old information, and they replaced it with their new stuff. I'll toss out a website here. You can go check out her stuff. It's just an http:// thing. velvetransput.info. velvetransput.info. And that's where she lists all her stuff. She also has a disclaimer. Her stuff is not for kids necessarily, so be warned. But she was very gracious, a lot of fun. She did a beautiful picture of Cory and I, which I will eventually scan and get onto our website. And she even took a picture of Cory and I, which we thought for one brief moment might become our header picture for the Crazy Comics and Stuff podcast, not Facebook official, whatever we call that thingy. But it didn't. But it was fun. What I also thought was interesting about her is that as things were going on, kids would gravitate to her, and she was so nice to them, and she drew them little pictures, and the kids were absolutely thrilled with it. And then, of course, free comics. But
she has another webpage called VasLittlecrow.com, and that's for all of her work. She does painting, she does design. It has her calendar. It has things that she's selling. She used to come to the convention years and years ago. She was the one who would do kind of the hula hooping. But because of all the hula hooping she did at all these different appearances and stuff, she kind of messed up her hips and everything and has not been able to get out and go to conventions and do appearances for a while. So she's kind of returning to it this year. Seems to be a theme for 2015. Ooh. She's returning to it this year, and it was good to see her. We used to have long political discussions after the 2-day convention, because she's very libertarian, and I'm a little to the left of the late Paul Wellstone. And and the good thing was they weren't arguments. We were sitting down trying to understand how each other were thinking. And she was one of the few people who I vehemently disagree with that I enjoyed our discussions, because it didn't turn into, oh yeah, well, Hitler!
If ever you feel you're losing a conversation, just say Hitler. Too soon?
Well, you know who else would say Hitler all the time? Hitler.
No, I don't think he talked about himself in the third person.
Yeah, he did. I've seen it in movies. And in Jack Kirby comic books, so it must be true.
Well, if Jack said so, that's good enough for me.
Damn right.
Now
we stayed at the shop a while. We had a blast.
You spent more time hanging with Butch and talking comics. I kind of went off on my own looking for something to buy, because that's just the way I am. I like to buy stuff when I visit my friendly neighborhood comic stores.
Oh, I bought some stuff.
I'm not saying you didn't.
About that in a minute.
I'm just saying you and Butch kind of paired up, and I was like off on my own because I was just digging through stuff. Eventually we caught up. I mean, the store wasn't that big, so we kept running across each other.
Well, you and I had fun going through they had a number of boxes of 50s romance comics.
Oh, those were fun.
And they were awesome.
Just anytime you pick up a 50s comic, you just read romance comic, you just read the cover, and that's enough to get a conversation going. And I think we had,
and they weren't the good ones either. You know, they weren't they weren't the Kirby. No, this was like Carlton, so it's nth generation knockoff crap.
Oh, I didn't even think about those. I have a bunch downstairs. We could have just, you probably could Google a few of the covers, but I had no idea he was the man for me until he was in another one's arms. We just sat and read these things over and over. And I swear I thought Vas was going to have a stroke just listening to us. All throughout the time we were there, the shop was actually pretty busy. I mean, people would come in, pick up comics. Tim, I think, limited to 4 comics, and then he would allow, if you bought a certain amount, to get one more, because what had happened previous years is what you think would happen. People would come in, swoop everything up, and by 2 o'clock he had nothing. And we're not talking everything. We had some people coming in and swooping up entire stacks of stuff for whatever reason. So he just said, this is the way it is. He did do something that I would probably do if I had a comic shop, and I would actually offer this to my my subscribers. He was selling complete packs for $25, which not a bad idea, because you're paying the cost of assembling it, and these free comics were different sizes and stuff, so it's a pain in the butt to try to put them all together.
And while they are
he sold a few
free, unquote, they cost the stores something. They have to buy, they buy them in bundles, but there's a cost for them, not just the postage. They have to pay for that comic.
Yeah. So I thought that was
not a lot, but still.
I haven't got a chance to I really ain't talked to Tim much, even when we saw him at the con. And but he said he had a pretty good comic book day, free comic book day. I mean, when I do it, I was that was like an extra week of sales for me. Talking to a few of my friends who ventured to go out to the source, they were jam-packed as usual. Just a mob scene. People were having a blast. I think they said the bags lasted to maybe 2. The fun lasted until they closed. So, again, if you're in the cities, that's an awesome place to hang out. That was pretty much it for us, though. We just went to Granite City. We didn't really we thought we would rush back in town and check a few others. But before we get into the next activity, just some of the things that I picked up. Like I said, I like photo covers, so I picked me up a DC Sergeant Bilko's Private Doberman that had a picture of the said actor who played Private Doberman on it. Number 5, 10 center with a little CBS television logo on it. And then to go the other direction, I got a copy of The Big Valley with, of course, Lee Majors, Peter Breck, Richard Long, Linda Evans, and Barbara Stanwyck on the cover. Oh, it would have been fun to get some autographs of these people. So those were kind of the big buck items I bought. Now, we spent a lot of time digging through the cheap bins. And
because that's what I do.
Oh, and that was the fun part. I mean, you know, and he had a deal. What was the deal? 15 for...
There were the 15 for $5.
Yeah.
And then the all back issues were, I don't remember.
He was doing different deals. I think that
30, 40% off, something like that.
So, and when I went through, I picked up just, I don't know, anything that looked interesting. I mean, I picked up What the number 15, Electric Girl number 7, Warren Ellis Down from Image Comics. I don't ever recall that. Empty Love Stories, bagged copy of Ultra Force number 1. Picked up some Marvel Masterpieces. Remember when they had the cards and they would reprint the cards in comic book size? So it was actually kind of neat pinup stuff. I found a Justice number 4, Justice Inc. that is, and X-Ray Comics number 1. But the thing that really caught my attention, that really surprised me, was a freebie comic. Actually, I don't think it was freebie. I think they charged for it, that I was never aware of. Way, way, way back in the 90s, I picked up a disc, a DVD called Saturday Morning Cartoons, which had a bunch of covers of various current bands back in the 90s, like Matthew Sweet. He would do Scooby-Doo. The Ramones did Spider-Man. The CD was just a blast to listen to. I think the Butthole Surfers did like Underdog. And a friend of mine, Chris Farley, he found me the VHS tape, which had a half-hour show of just a bunch of people getting up in the morning and deciding, let's watch these cartoons. And some of the videos that they made tied into the Saturday morning video actually showed up on Cartoon Network. You might have seen them do H.R. Puffin stuff. I think somebody did Josie and the Pussycats. Drew Barrymore was in this. And, of course, she would make comments throughout, which was kind of cool because, you know, she's running around in, you know, a pajama top and bottoms. But annoying if you're watching the video and then she's got to jump in and make a comment. The comic book that I had no idea existed was called the Saturday Morning Comic. And it dates from March 1996. And I haven't even read it, but it's kind of almost the same thing where somebody just wakes up and discovers, hey, look, they have all this funky music based on licensed properties that we can't reprint in the comic book, but nevertheless refer to because, you know, you can go out and buy the disc for it somewhere. So it was kind of neat. So now I actually have the disc, the VHS, and the comic book. So I was fairly pleased.
And one thing that I find really interesting about that CD, you played it at the shop, and I went, oh, man, I got to own this.
Oh.
That is the first time I heard the band. Well, Joe always calls me an atheist, but every few months I do go to church. I go to the church of the Good Reverend Horton Heat when he comes to town. That was the first time I ever heard the Good Reverend Horton Heat. And I swear, every time I see him in concert, there's a part of me that says, come on, please play Catch That Pigeon and the Johnny Quest theme. Please play the Johnny Quest theme. God damn it.
Actually, the Ramones are in the comic book, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
This is kind of neat. Oh, another treasure. What kind of goodies did you find as you were digging through their vast repertoire of stuff?
Well, I wasn't really looking to buy a whole lot because I think that this was still I had just started the new job, so I still wasn't getting a whole lot of hours. Still not getting a whole lot of hours. And so my funds were limited, but I went through, they had a box of magazines, old magazines, and I think they were either $1 or $2 each. And they had all but 3 issues of Eclipse's magazine. Eclipse, which they did a magazine, then they started doing comics. They're the ones who published Zot and Miracle Man and Airboy and
Tales of the Bean World.
Tales of the Bean World and all those. So I was able to pick up the magazines, which had some Don McGregor stories I had never read before. I was very happy about that. And then they had, just in there, just for $1 or $2 each, the final 2 issues of Warren Magazine's Eerie, which are unbelievably hard to find. Now, they're not in the greatest of shape, but they're there. And I snatched those bad boys up.
And we also double-checked to make sure that the remaining issues of Eclipse there were that Cory had. Because Cory, here's number 6. I got it. Here's number 7. I got it. Do you have number 6? I got it. Well, there's 2 copies here. Ah.
I'm pretty thorough when I dig.
He's a digger.
And then Joe made a comment about Deathmate. He's gonna puke! He's gonna puke! Oh. And I made a joke about how, at the next con I ought to just put together a set of that. Because I still, to this day, have never read it. And Butch is looking through the cheapies
dead than
and
red.
he says, better burned than red.
Oh, don't believe it.
Butch is looking through the cheapies and goes, hey, some Deathmate in here. So I did, and I pull all the one of each of the Deathmate that's in the cheapie bin. And then I start giggling, Joe, I'm putting together a full set of Deathmate. And just for a joke, I go over to look through the back issues. He had full runs of Deathmate. All of them. So whenever Joe would get out of line, I would just pull out the Deathmates and go, Joe, full run of Deathmate!
And to be fair, with the exception of one run to the bathroom, I did pretty much keep it in.
But, I don't know St. Cloud at all, other than friend of the show, Stephanie Coffell, and her lovely husband live there. It seemed like a nice little comic shop. It was very heavy on, the mainstream stuff. If you're going there to find
Tales of the Bean World
books, yeah, if you're going there to find indie books, you're going there to find artsy books. You're not going to find it there. But if you want to find your Marvel, your DC, your high selling Image, your high selling Dark Horse and stuff like that, they've got it. They've got a really good selection of that stuff. While I was there, they had subscribers come in, and the subscribers were treated like pals. But that's going to happen when the shop's been there for, forever.
Yeah, I forget what he said. It was 25 or 30 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it was there when Gruber and I first started doing Comic-Cons, back in the 80s. So it's been a while.
So they've got a nice setup. It was in a really nice part of town. And
the historic downtown.
We did pass by a shop that we should have stopped and got a picture at because we said, we'll get a picture on the way out of town. They had a business there. I swear to God, I have no idea what they do, but they had a business called Granite City Jobbers. And of course, Butch and I are like, that's the name of our tag team. We're the Granite City Jobbers. Pin me and pay me.
Now, we couldn't hang all day. Well, we could have. But there was a movie out that I don't think many people heard of.
It's a little indie film.
Yeah, it was based on some obscure comic book and some characters I don't think anybody cares about. And, of course, we're talking about the Wallowitz sisters go humping.
What?
No.
I was sleeping during that film.
Yeah, no, that was the previews. Yeah, of course.
Oh, okay.
We went to go see the Avengers. Oh, that was fun.
It was. The theater itself seemed like, kind of kind of a, your typical small multiplex.
Yeah.
It was nice. It wasn't great. One thing that I loved is the popcorn they had, all the regular popcorn. And then they had, if you pay this much, you can get an Avengers popcorn tin.
Yes.
That you get to keep.
We were
so,
very,
of course,
very
I'm big on that stuff.
He was.
So I bought me an Avengers popcorn tin.
Yep.
And when I got into the theater and sat down, I promptly spilled the motherfucker.
Which is where I got my popcorn from.
So I had to go out and get the popcorn again.
And I, of course, made the mistake. I thought if I just drink, we hadn't eaten, so we were, eating a little bit at the theater. I thought if I just drink a small Diet Cola, I'll be fine. Nope. Had to get up halfway through the movie, and when will I ever learn?
Yeah, Joe, my father told me something when I was young that I ignored at the time.
Oh, I remember. Wasn't it? Why don't you get out of the bathroom? Give somebody else a chance. What are you doing in there all day?
No. It was, Cory, gonna let you know something. Once you get to 30, every chance you get to pee, take it.
There's one tree.
Now, we could have waited an hour and a half and gone to the regular movie, but we said, no, we want to go now.
Yeah, so we got the 3D experience.
Now, they did try to say, the other movie, it's only been going for 20 minutes.
What?
It's like, no, I'm not going to miss
all the
anything.
credits. I'm only there for the previews,
That's right. Speaking of previews, was there anything that leaped out at you that you went, ooh?
Well, of course, I'm about the only person in existence that's actually excited about a Batman Superman, assuming that they do turn more to the light. I'll give them one more movie to be a little dark, and then they should be the heroes we hope they are. You got that, Warner Brothers? Ant-Man looked good.
Yes. That was the one that excited me, because Ant-Man's been one that people said, I don't know. And for me, it's like, when I saw Ant-Man, it's like, okay, that's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun. The other ones, I don't really remember all that much, but there were a lot of previews. It was a good 10 minutes or more of previews.
Well, I remember when I worked at the movie theater, what it is, they give you a list. These trailers must be attached to this movie. And if you don't attach them to the movie, the theater can be fined.
Oh, yeah. I did. It was nice seeing Star Wars on the big screen. That was fun.
Yeah, the Star Wars trailer was very, very cool. And after watching it on the screen, it's like, I'm going to quit watching Star Wars stuff on my little 15-inch monitor.
Don't need anything bigger.
God. Just as good as a theater on a little 5-inch black and white screen.
Ain't nothing better.
God. We are, of course, referring to Brian, who owned the shop before Joe and bought the shop from Joe. And that was the one time when Butch would get really nostalgic, making fun of Brian.
Yep, he just propped himself up, bucket of sketty in one hand, little 5-inch black and white multi-purpose television, watching Star Wars.
And Cops.
Nothing better. Resist!
He was obsessed with the show
he liked
Cops.
That was a good show. He liked that. But even better.
Resist, damn it! Resist!
I'm Sheriff John Burnell, and we're going to watch the most gruesome car chases and accidents you've ever seen. On When People Don't Stop for Cops. Remember, this was the 90s. It was a little bit more innocent then.
No, it wasn't.
Well, it was. It just wasn't the internet around to, amplify everything.
Well, there was that.
Speaking of amplify, I will swear the theater had the first part of the Avengers on mute because we had a running commentary by some kid speaking Spanish in the front row. And it wasn't that the kid was speaking Spanish. It was just that the parents wouldn't shut him up. And it didn't really bother me when the action was going on because you couldn't hear him. But when you get to a slow part and you're trying to make out, what is it the Black Widow saying? And you hear, Espanol dos sombranes patos, It's like, shh, quiet. But I guess somebody must have complained because halfway through the movie, it did get louder. So that wasn't too bad. What did you think
I did
overall?
find it funny. I'm coming in talking with Butch,
Mm-hmm.
and the people who sat in front of us
Oh, yeah.
were like,
It was a
"You
family.
should be an announcer."
I think I told him, I said, don't worry, we'll shut up when the movie starts. Because we were just all over the previews. I'm not even going to watch that on Redbox.
Yeah, but you've always been like that. You review movies from previews.
Oh, yeah.
I remember we'd go to a movie, and after the trailer would be over, Joe would go, "Rent it," or "Watch it on cable."
HBO. Buy the DVD. Okay, that one I'll watch. Now the movie
If it's
itself.
not Scottish, it's crap.
I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was fun. It was action-packed. It had a slow moment so I could run up and go to the bathroom. I have not seen it again yet, but overall, I listen to people complain about it, and I'm like, dudes, it's a frickin' roller coaster. What else do you expect? If you want to see Captain America advance his storyline, you're going to have to go see a Captain America movie. I read some of the behind-the-scenes things, especially Wheaton complaining, and people, well, that Thor theme seemed kind of tacked on, and I think I agree with him. Of course, I'm not the guy to argue that because I'm like, you know what? I don't care if you give me a 4-hour movie. I'm going to watch it. I love extended cuts. Put it all back. Put it back. I want to watch it all. So,
there are rumors that Whedon's original, not the original cut, but the cut before he had to slice it to pieces was 3.5 hours long, and Marvel is talking about putting it out on a deluxe DVD, kind of like they do with the Tolkien movies. And that, for me, I think that would really improve it because the middle of the movie got really, really choppy and the fight scenes got hard to follow. Now, the first fight scene, very easy to follow, much like the first Avengers movie, where you know what's going on, you know who's doing what to who, you see all the stuff, and it has a flow. The later fight scenes seem very choppy, and
very choppy.
And
Parachoppers.
The thing that really I walked out of there going, James Spader needs to win an award. Because he carried that movie. Just with his voice acting for Ultron. He carried that movie.
Yeah.
He made it seem much more important just by how he related to things. And I know that at one point this was going to be the last Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. They've since signed a new contract. But you could tell that they were kind of wrapping up the story of Tony Stark. But then they left some stuff, okay, here are the plot threads that are floating out there. And I can't believe how many people were, there wasn't a thing at the very end of the credits. Why isn't there a thing at the very end of the credits? Well, they had a thing in the middle of the credits, and they've been saying for the last 3 months there will not be anything after the credits. Still, people sat and waited.
Yeah.
Marvel has trained people to do that. So I think from now on, they've got to have something at the end of the credits for all their movies. People are trained to do that.
Yeah. The only reason I could think maybe they're getting away from it is maybe the theaters are complaining, we can't get these people out of here fast enough, clean the place, and get ready for the next one. I haven't heard if that's true or not, but that's the only thing I could think of why a studio wouldn't do that after they've done it with almost every single other movie.
Yeah. And the other thing is, the credits are there because they're contractually obligated to be there.
Have some fun with them.
Yeah, you got to run them. And it's better than, when you watch a movie on cable and the movie's over and they're already starting the next show and the credits are shrunk down and like someone hit the fast button, forward button on their TiVo 4 times. I'm getting a headache.
There's my name. There were a couple of things.
Now, while we were doing this stuff, I was actually conversing with the lovely and talented Stephanie Kofel because she lives in St. Cloud. My friend Tommy, who maybe people who listen to this podcast might get to know a little better here soon. Is that a hint? Is Cory dropping hints?
Is he going to get a name of everybody who listens to our podcast and personally go and give them a piece of pie?
Oh, I doubt that.
Oh, well, then who?
There's 4,000 people who download this thing.
Well, what's the point?
You keep saying there's 12.
You can subtract.
We can't say that. That's a wrestle
You
crap
can
show.
subtract 5. I'm having problems getting the download to work.
But Tommy was going to come with us, but he had some stuff he needed to take care of, and he
Laundry.
since I met him in 2004, has been going on and on and on about this burrito place.
Killing giant-sized, man-sized rats.
Being the greatest burrito place that ever existed.
Mixing his own peanut butter. He's a busy guy, this Tommy.
Yes, he is. And he couldn't come. So I was like, when Stephanie found out we were there, she was busy. Her and her husband are about to embark on a big music tour,
Ooh.
which may or may not be talked about in an upcoming podcast not done by either of us, but
we've never
the Solid Rose Radio Network.
We have never put an rule in this podcast about plugging things like my eBay site, KRAYZ, where as we get to freaking, you'll find what is about to come very, very active. So if you got to plug something, plug it. Don't be coy. I'll smack you around.
But I kept saying, we're here in town. What would be a good place to eat? And every place she suggested, I would go to Butch and go, so you want to go to this Indian food place? Butch goes, Indian food? We're not eating Indian. So
right.
We get done at the theater, and what was it? I got going a little late, so on my way to get Joe, I had breakfast in the car because I drive to work every day. I'm used to having breakfast in the car. And Joe kept trying to feed me little chocolate donuts.
It's not a road trip unless you have a bag of artificial wax donuts. And it's important to eat them at the beginning of the trip because by the time you get to the end, especially during summer, they've molded into one giant dough.
Oh, by the way, you did leave them in the back of the car?
Well, that's part of tradition. They should be there for the next road trip.
My son needed to borrow the car when I got home. And I had to work the next day. So it's like, oh, cool, I'll have some donuts to eat on the way to work. I don't need to. So I get in the car, and I'm driving along, and there's the donut bag, and I grab the donut bag, and it's so light because he ate them all.
Good man.
So we're driving home trying to figure out.
Oh, wait, I want to talk Avengers quick before we go home.
Okay.
Because as I've been reading now, of course, all the spoilers and all the Easter eggs and all the other fun stuff, the one thing that strikes me is that the Avengers movie we see from any movie we see from Marvel here on out, apparently Disney is taking a keen notice on what Marvel's doing. Because it sounds like for the most part the Avengers movie was pretty much hands off. Now it sounds like executives are all over this, like... You going to make me say it, or should I just infer I did?
No, you can say it.
Oh, man, they are all over it like Oprah on a baked ham, I'm telling you. And it's not a good baked ham either.
We have had a couple complaints about people not liking you using that phrase. Oh. And all I have to say is, to those people, I wouldn't give your problems to a monkey on a rock.
Not my circus, not my monkeys. So... He talks a lot about the whole thing with the Thor scene. It was chopped up and it felt kind of added on and thrown in there. And again, when I watch it, I'm being a combo guy, I kind of fill in the blanks and just go on with the story. But he was right. It was kind of thrown in there because otherwise Thor would have disappeared and he would have come back, pounded the gem into Vision and go, I solved the problem. I know what's happening. So it's just something that's going to happen. If I had two things I would have added on the movie, I would have made Cap say Avengers Assemble. I know Wheaton hates it, his movie, his rules, but, that would be in the fun part. He claims it was too late to throw in a little bit of Spider-Man. I don't know if I would agree with that. With a digital movie, you could have had, the way it ended, it was like all these different scenes of heroes showing up. Here's the Falcon. Here's Quicksilver. Sorry, he's dead. He's, was that a spoiler? Here's Scarlet Witch. Here's Hawkeye. You could have had Spider-Man coming out of the left frame, boom, just landing on all four. We would have spontaneously exploded in an orgasmic geekgasm. And you tell me, oh, it was too late to put it in. No, it wasn't. You could have digitally put somebody in. You could have paid a stunt guy to jump in frame. I know a few that actually went to Comic-Con. You could have given us that, but fine, you didn't. The other thing I was waiting for, and I was dying to see the line where Thor just blasts something away, Ultron, we would have words with thee. Those are the only two things I would have added. Is there anything you would have thought to add? You're a Disney exec. You're meddling. You're going to put something in. What would you put in?
Well, I know Whedon has said that he wanted to put in Captain Marvel.
Oh, yeah.
And Spider-Man, but the problem is that neither one of them had been cast yet.
And see, I don't buy that with Spider-Man because he's a costume dude. You got a teenager, put a teenager in a costume, have him jump into frame, CGI it. That is not insurmountable. Captain Marvel could be. Because, obviously you want to have a face. Although you could have done a coy butt shot where she just turns around and we don't really see the face, we just see the costume. How am I figuring this out? Why didn't Whedon think of this crap?
Because he probably had a whole lot of stuff to juggle at once.
And he probably didn't care. It sounded like he was just not having a lot of fun by the time Disney started sticking.
Well, it was a long shoot, and especially with very digital-heavy movies, I've listened to a lot of director commentaries and stuff, and they say with a lot of digital effects, you really kind of are shooting and hoping it turns out okay. Because you really don't know how it's going to look. I'm looking at you, George Lucas. So, I don't know if there's anything I would have changed other than smooth out that second act a little bit. There are some complaints about how Black Widow was treated. I thought the actor who played the Hulk had the best reaction to it when they said, oh gosh, the Black Widow was only there to calm down the Hulk and et cetera, and the actor who played the Hulk said no, she was the most important one there because she was the glue binding all of them together. She was the one that kept them as a team. Because especially, you look at the first Avengers movie, you look at this one, these are personalities that aren't programmed to get along very well. Let's remember, the core of a Marvel superhero book in the 60s and 70s is first time two heroes meet, they fight. So
Fight.
I thought it was great that she was the one who kind of infiltrated the headquarters and got the information they needed, and I didn't have a problem with it. Hawkeye, they did a really good job of making Hawkeye much more interesting. And the character developments they did with Hawkeye worked in the movie, were completely blindsiding comic fans because it's a very different sort of characterization and background than the comic. And I like the movie Hawkeye a lot. I thought the additions were really good. And again, it's a movie I want to see more of, so.
Bring on the DVD!
So on our way home.
You've got 3 underfed, overhyped, hungry comic geeks in a little itty bitty car.
It's a Dodge Stratus. It's a 4-door.
I stand by my. If you had to sit in the back seat behind Butch, it would be an itty bitty car. Although I gotta say,
it doesn't matter what car you're in. If Butch is in the front seat, you're going to get squished.
I have to thank Butch for allowing me to wear his shirt because on the way up, the sun was beating on my head. It would have made me extra crispy. So I look like a sheik. Hey, let's check out. You are a very honorable man, Butch. Thank you for allowing me to wear your shirt.
God.
So we're hungry. We're on our way home.
And we're talking about, where should we eat? And you said Mama's Pizza, and Butch said this place. And as we're driving by, I see this really weird sign.
Space Alien.
Now, does it just say Space Alien?
I think it's a chain.
Yeah, but is it Space Alien or Alien Cafe or Alien Diner?
Alien. And it's got the classical Space Alien face that we know and love from South Park.
And I say, well, let's go here. This looks weird and annoying.
And it was.
So we pull in, and yes, it is. It's they have kind of a futuristic design, but a 50s futuristic design. Very much that 50s, this is what the future will look like. It's all diner food, but they give it, the cutesy alien names. What saved the restaurant for me was the waitress.
Yes.
The waitress was funny, and she got our humor.
Yes. Well, we were running through our Simpsons repertoire, and she pretty much jumped right in with us. That bird's gonna fly, see?
The only thing I remember is we kept looking on the menu for meatloaf for Butch, and sadly they had meatloaf, so I don't know what he ate.
Yeah, he ate something. I just don't remember.
Yeah, he ate something.
I think I had what passes for their version of steak.
You had the Waffle House steak.
Yep, steak.
Because when you go to a diner, that pretty much, we do burgers, we do grilled cheese, we do French fries, we do cheese curds.
Steak?
Steak is kind of a loose term.
Yes, although if you put enough A1 on it, it just doesn't matter.
It was what, like a $10 steak?
I don't remember.
I often say that I did not believe the Waffle House was a real place until the first time I drove down to New Orleans, because I'd heard Jim Ross for years go, he's as tough as a Waffle House steak. And I'm driving to New Orleans, and I stop a little past Memphis because, I'm one of those people, if I'm going on a road trip, it's a real honest-God road trip, and I'm stopping places. So I stopped at Graceland, I stopped at every Stuckey's that I saw, and, it was like, I've been on the road for, 8.5, 9 hours, and for me, it's like, okay, I'm tapping out. There's a cheap motel that has a bed and a TV and a shower. That's all I need. That's all I need. I don't need fancy.
Nope, nothing else.
And right next to it was a Waffle House, and I remember going in and going, oh my God, they're real. Jesus God, they're real. So the next morning I had to go to the Waffle House. I had to, Joe. I had to. First off, the waffle irons are frightening. I don't think this place, they hadn't been cleaned since the 30s. And second, it's where I first had grits, but I didn't know what they were. I had never had grits before, never heard of grits. I asked what they were, and the waitress said they're a side dish. And I said, but what are they? They're 95 cents. But what are they? Well, they're a side dish. They're on the side. And because she wouldn't tell me what they actually were, I didn't eat them. But I know when I got down to New Orleans and I called my mother and I said, now what are grits? She explained it to me. It's like, oh, wonder why the waitress never said that. Oh, they've never thought about what they're actually eating. But, yeah, Waffle House. I think I'd rather eat at the Target food court.
Target food court.
But the Alien Diner, and this was the night of the big Mayweather fight. What surprised me was it's Saturday night, and we got there, about 7:30, 8 o'clock? There weren't a lot of people there.
Nope. I did post a couple pictures of Cory and I there. So if you go back to our the official Crazy Comics and Stuff podcast page, you can kind of see. We were reacting to a couple news headlines.
I was very upset about who the space alien endorsed in the year 2000.
And I know those mysterious cow abductions will be blamed on me.
Well, as well they should.
Steak. And that was Free Comic Book Day.
The only other thing is, they said arcade. They have an arcade, and my problem is arcades have been disappointing to me for a good 15 years. I think the last arcade that I really enjoyed, other than Hot Comics Jordan, was GameWorks downtown because they had actual video games and pinball machines. So I didn't go in until we were done, and of course I go in, and it's exactly what I thought. an arcade is now. It's just crappy things for kids to get tickets so they can use the tickets to get
prizes,
erasers on their pencils.
Yes,
it's skee-ball, and it's
skee-ball's making a comeback.
Whack-a-mole, and it's spin this and push this button, and no. If I go to an arcade, God damn it, I want a game. I want a yellow circle that eats dots. I want aliens that I can shoot. I want pinball machines, and I want something going, I am Sinistar. But no, none of it. Bastards. So I drove home.
He did. Dropped us off.
Yes. And worked the next day.
Yes.
I had to be there at 6 a.m. I was tired, Joe.
I was very tired. Very
I was really, really tired.
Now, I suppose I should let you all know, the last time I talked about the state of my car, I believe the steering column had been burning up.
Yes, it was on fire.
It was on fire.
Now, you should also tell about the visitor your house had.
Somebody dropped a handmade, non-licensed trailer in front of our house. On the public street, of course, not actually in front of the house, otherwise it'd be hard to get my mail. So it had been there for 2 weeks. Chris had called it in a few times. My wife and neighbors had called it in. Everybody ignored it. And finally we figured, well, you know what? Butch will come by and pick it up. He'll take it. We examined it. We looked it over. It was padlocked shut. So we thought, you know what? I'm going to look up one day, and if it's gone, we're not even going to ask a question. It did finally disappear. Apparently somebody tried to drag it away, not realizing the reason the thing was there to begin with was that the tire was flat. So they dragged it out, and this time, instead of just parked on the side of the street, it was in the middle of the street.
Oh, dear God.
So, I'd come home, Chris had given me a ride home, and as we were sitting there, all of a sudden, the cops pulled up. And Chris and I were like, hey, what's the chance to get rid of it? So we jumped out, we talked to the cops, we said, yeah, this thing has been here about 2 weeks. It's had a flat tire, there's no license on it, we don't know what it is. And he said somebody tried to drive it, we have called it in. He said, oh, so it's not yours or any of the neighbors? We said, no, we checked with all the neighbors. He said, okay, we're towing it out of here. They sat there for 10 minutes until the tow truck got there. 10 minutes after the tow truck got there, it was gone. We never did find out what was in it, even though it was padlocked shut. I suspect it was someone from the NSA spying on me.
I actually think it's Jerry Lewis's movie, The Day the Clown Cried.
Oh, man, we couldn't.
Our one chance to watch it.
And it got towed away. But you no longer need to fear about how I'm going to get around town and find out all these cool comics and stuff that I like to talk about when we get to Freaking and Geeking. Because I done bought myself a truck. Yep. Hang on a second. I'll pull my pants down a bit. Let my gun out.
God.
Yep. Got me a Dodge Dakota, which is basically their mini truck, which ironically costs as much as the full-size truck, which is why they no longer make them. But to me, it was cool. It's quad cab, so I can fit my whole family in it. It's got a short 6-foot bed. I don't know what they call the thing. It doesn't have a topper on it, but it's like covers the bed of it, like some type of canvas thing that folds up and back and forth. 4-wheel drive for the wintertime. Sucks down gas like Oprah sucks down baked ham, but it's my truck and I can go where I need to. So I'm done mobile again. Yeehaw! Let's have some fun, boys. Yeehaw! Let's get going here.
Well, we still need to talk about MSB Comic-Con, but I think that's enough for one episode, Joe.
Yeah, because I use the truck to haul crap to the con. So see, it all kind of balances. It ties together. So yeah, let's go ahead and end it here, because there's much more baked ham coming. I mean, comic book talk coming in part 2 of this here super-sized podcast.
And as we say every week, kids, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic you like the most. Joe?
Oh, I feel like dancing. Call my mama. Hit my music.
Funk is on a roll. Funk is on a roll.
Hey, yo.
Funk is
Can somebody call my mama? It's about to get funky up in here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Somebody call my mama. Somebody call my mama. Somebody call my mama. What you say? Somebody please call my mama. Somebody call my mama. Somebody call my mama. Say somebody call my mama. Get me. Please call my mama.
What you say now? What you got? What you got for me?
The end.